Good evening and welcome back. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be finishing off the canvas from last Friday. So for those of you that weren't watching, I started off with a floating canvas, and this arrives with the canvas and the frame as separate entities so that you can work just on the canvas to start with. And I layered up things like the stencils using texture paste, but also using die cuts as well, sometimes 2 and 3 copies thick, so that we've got a nice bit of depth going on. And then we literally covered it in paint. Then during the actual video you'll see me actually painting the face and working out how that's going to work in terms of what's on our canvas, as well as picking out bits from our texture background and bringing that through our painting. So I hope you can see that okay and you can hear me okay. If not, do just pop a comment, just because I can't see that anybody is watching. So I'm just going to have to grab the mat back in for a second to get my mouse to work, because it doesn't like the glass mat. And hi Mel! So we are working, it's just a little bit on the slow side today. And hi Mom! And hi Carol! So while my chat is trying to catch up, I'm going to carry on with the next section. So I've actually glued my canvas now to my frame using gel medium, and you're going to want to put some weights onto your work when you're actually drying this so that it actually has a really good bond. So I wanted to do that before we put too many kind of really 3D elements on. So that's something to bear in mind. I started off with it drying face down so that I could put the weight on the actual wooden frame, and then turned it back over and let that set for a bit longer. Given how warm it is today, it wasn't actually glued that long ago, so it's only been glued for about an hour. And great to see that the sound's working. I had a bit of a glitch yesterday in my live, so good to check. So what have I done to pull bits out? So I have some stamped images that I've already gone over the top with the explosion powders, and this one is Artemis. So we've got that already through our background here, for those of you that weren't watching last week. I also use the sprays, as well as a little tiny bit of the Artemis, onto some die cut flowers. So I have those good to go. Some of them I've glued too thick, some of them I've just left as single for now. Then I have some of the flowers good to go. And I've also pulled some out of my stash as well that just happen to be the right colour. I've also brought in our lovely fibres, so we can use some of those if we want to. And also some stamens, just in case I want to pop those into my flowers. And in terms of flowers that are a little bit more 3D and hardware-y, we've got some little resin ones here that we can use, and I've also pulled out a couple of metal pieces as well. There's some little sparkly gems. So I'm not going to go overboard with the sparkle, because our background is so sparkly, and we can always knock elements back either using paint, using gesso. It's really up to you. And hi Taz! So most important thing is starting to plan our layout. So I'm going to go for my biggest piece first, which is a good kind of way round to go. If you start with your biggest piece first, then you've got lots of little bits that you can kind of infill with. Whereas if you do it the other way around, it's a bit more tricky to see where you're going. So if you have loose elements on your canvas, you can probably slide things underneath. But if you get to a point where it's just not going to quite slide under enough, you can actually cut into elements, so don't be afraid to do that. Now I want this one here to kind of come round, so it's forming more like a headband, but this section here is totally in my way. So I'm going to chop that off, and I'm just going to follow the line of the petals. So I hope you've had a good week, and I'm looking forward to a fab weekend. Okay. There's no in tonight, in case you hadn't guessed. So I'm all on my own. So I will try and keep an eye on the comments. Now, we could tuck some elements behind if we wanted to, like that, so that we start to make our cog pop forward, which is a good way if you want to kind of give an idea of perspective. Or if you want to go over the top, you can do. I think I'm going to go kind of there, so that we're starting to get the sense that this headband's part of it, but not necessarily at the forefront at that point, because we're going to have some other elements that are going to come around to what is essentially our giant headphone just here. So now, to stick elements down, I'm just going to be using some gel medium, and as I said, this is what I use to stick the frame as well, so it's really good adhesive. I'm just going to do a little bit of a dunk with my palette knife, and then I don't want to put too much on when we're working with paper elements, just because we don't want it to crinkle. So thin layers are good. We can always add more after if we need to in places. Just going to slide that back under there, under our two prongs, and there we go. Now, if there's bits that are curling up, especially at the top here, don't worry about those just at the moment, because we might want to slide other things underneath. But what I would say is you're going to want to mix it up a bit. So now that we've got something stamped down, you want to go for different elements. So whether that's one of the ones that you sprayed, it could be that you're going to go for one of the pre-made flowers. But I think just because I want to concentrate on trying to keep the 3D stuff really around this area here, I'm just going to stick to flatter flowers as we kind of get up into this section here. So I've pulled out a little hydrangea bud, because we've got the hydrangea in our background already, and it's kind of linking the two together. So I'm thinking, well, let's go and pop that one in there. Now you can see these flowers already have a hole in the middle, so that can be an ideal opportunity to put a little stamen in. And stamens have more than one use, because we can also use those to give us a base, particularly if you're working with things like hot glue. I'm just going to try and pull one of these out. There we go. So, depending on the size of your flower, you might want to trim these down, so you just get one little stamen to go through, which I'm not going to do here. Then we get the thread of that through. Now, if your stamens have a bit more of a wire base to them, you can actually coil them through. Oh, my hole's a little bit big on this one, so I'm going to end up doing 2 or 3 just so they don't all fall through. That's fine too. Okay, through the other one. Might just get one more through. So when we're working with flowers or anything that is natural, you're better off trying to work in odd numbers. So you can go for 5, you can go for 3. And chop those in half. Move the mouse out of the way. Okay. Let's try 3 and see where we go. If it needs more, we can always add more. And right now you're probably thinking, those look awfully long tails for that size of flower. It's okay, we're going to sort that out in a minute. So I'm just going to pull that through. One more for good measure, so that we're sticking to our odd numbers. Ooh, there's always going to be one, isn't there? Or in this case two. Stuck together. Which is going to be fun to try and get through this hill, but we'll try our best. Come on. It's one of those ones where a needle thread will come in handy. Okay. That's not going to want to go through there. So what I'm going to do with the back section, I'm just going to pinch the stamen so that I've got hold of the decorative bits. And I'm going to trim this down because these aren't very wired. Some of you get a bit more wired so that you can coil them and use them for your hot glue. This one's not. So I'm just going to squidge a little bit of gel medium so that I've got my threads kind of flat. Now I'm going to pop that just there. So we've got our hydrangea petals in the background here. Just move that down just a titch. I'm just going to press that down. Don't worry about fluffing petals just yet, just concentrate on getting that bond. It doesn't take very long and then we can fluff. I think that's a technical term, fluff. Okay. So, let's go for something different again. I'm going to go for one of our little flowers here. And this one's nice and delicate, so we can use that to kind of overlap other elements if we want to. And this one's got a little circle in the centre, so if you want to, we could pop a gem in there. You could use something like a 3D pearl in terms of the little balls if you wanted to. Or if you just want to use some glitter glue, if that's all you have. And hi Elaine! Mum saying, maybe scissors. So, not time me to seal my glue though. Let's put a little bit on there. So we're just going to literally pop that into the centre. Flip it over. I'm going to just pop that in there. So it's going to be slightly overlapping our stamped image. And again, once that's set, we can fluff a little bit more. And I have got some little gems and things to one side that I can use to just pop that in. Kim, if you're watching, I can't see your comments, so I do apologise. It's a bit of a random one. If people reply, I don't necessarily see the comment. Yeah, my mum's watching, so she's like, safety conscious. Okay, so next, which bit should we go for? I think I'm going to go for a little rosewood, just because we can. We've done a lot of purple so far, so I'm just going to go. Now I have got good sharp scissors, but if your scissors aren't very strong, then use a pair of wire snips just to do that. And again, plenty of gel medium, especially on things that have a curve. It's going to give it a little bit of a stronger bond. So I'm going to try and put this one down here. Now, as I said, as we start to get towards our headphone, we're going to get a bit more 3D. And just press and hold that for a moment. Now, thankfully, it's nice and warm today, so these should be setting nice and quickly. I'm going to leave a bit more of a stem on this one. But when we're applying our gel, I'm still going to mostly go on the flower itself. Okay. So when you're doing this, you are definitely going to get mucky fingers, but then you get to peel them off at the end. Okay, one more for good measure, because like I said, when we're working with things, we want to try and keep them in odd numbers. And we might even just pop that one just there, so it's like we have a stem without actually having the entirety of a stem. There we go. So, good blob of gel medium. And a little bit on the stem there. So again, we're just going to hold that for a second. Oh no, Carol! I must admit, I haven't been on Facebook much today. Been busy designing fun things. So, don't always get a lot of chance to hop on live, so I tried my best, but... Okay, next I'm going to go for another big flower, but I'm thinking rather than going straight to our biggest, I'm going to go for something that's big but a bit flatter. Now, here's a little trick. I'm going to take my flower, and it's got pretty regular flowers all the way around. I'm going to snip in between two petals towards the centre. And this means that we can have a bit more play in our flower. And if you want to, you can go all the way over, and that's going to really cup up your flower. But we can just glue two petals together like that, and we're going to get a nice soft, gentle cup to our flower. I thought there might be an issue, Taz, but yeah, really haven't been on. So I know my one backup page has gone over to the new style, and I was like, no. Okay, so we've got our lip petals here. I just want something that's just going to give them kind of a base to sit against. So I'm thinking just in here. Yeah, bit of gel onto the bottom. And I find some. You either get too little or way too much on the thing where you're holding it over there. There we go. And pop that. Let's go this way around where we've got the most height. Like that. Because then we can see our flowers the most. And again, as I said, you could put another gem in that. So I might do that at a later point. So it's about time we went back to our stamped images, and we're going to go to our pinks again. And I'm just going to build that one that way. So with some stamped images you can kind of do the same thing where you're snipping between two petals to curl it up, but others you're going to want to keep flat. So if you've got something where you've got a bit of perspective to it, you're better off keeping it flat. So I'm just going to pop that in there, like so. Okay. Now at this point I'm just going to pull out a little bit of fibre. So when you're working from the original bundle, it's wound quite tightly. You just want to pull really gently and slowly, and then you can get a little clump away. Yeah, sometimes symmetry works well, but when it's nature, then that's when I tend to go odd. What's for tea then, Taz? I'm still a little bit suffering from issues from COVID, so I was on the chicken noodle soup. So I'm just going to use this, and we could kind of stick it up if you want to do kind of a flapper style, but I think for this one I'm just going to let it dangle down. And it's a good way of kind of planning where you want your flowers to go in some ways. So I'm just going to sit there for a moment. Chinese, what are you having, Chinese? I love Chinese food, it does not love me. So I have a particular allergy, and it's a bit of a nightmare because it's in most Chinese food. So while I would love a lovely sweet and sour chicken or lemon chicken, quite often I can't have them. So hopefully you can see that, so that you can see that texture kind of coming through. And now let's pop one of our bigger flowers just to cover where we've put that in. So, eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Let's go for that one. It's a little bit darker. I'm just going to nest that in there. So. There. It's going to help pop up this one as well. This is one of those moments where just going to use my tip of my pen just to push that in. Now just be aware that while you're in that floating frame there's nothing underneath your canvas, so if you do push too hard you are going to warp your canvas. Ooh. You'd have to be watching Ian with the fried rice. He likes it, and he likes good chicken fried rice. And I'm definitely more of a noodles girl. So now as we're starting to head down, I think it's time for that lovely big flower to come into play. Now this one has got a bit of a stem, so I'm going to just put my thumb on those little stamens there and just give it a push just to get it where I need to. Now obviously if you're doing something that is a bit more can be threaded through. Strawberries and cream, well I would definitely be a sucker for the cream, but strawberries no. No. So, generally as a rule of thumb, the bigger the element, the more of a blob of gel medium I'll put on it. So I'm going to pop this one so that it's going to slot that way, but I don't want to cover up my little cog there too much. So I'm going to leave that kind of poking through. And just hold. I'm on the mend, Sarah Lou. Ian's not here currently. He is busy rehearsing. So, no, I do full on swell up, Leslie Ash style, yeah. While other people pay to have their lips plumped, I don't have to. But I have to say, having done it, it's an experience I would never want to repeat because it's very, 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 very ouchy. So I'm going to pop this one over here so that we're getting this texture through in the gap. And we should still see a little bit of our cog. And then we can come back down this way a little bit so we have a bit of S going on. So S is always good. Now again, this one's got a hole in, so if you want to pop a stain in, you can do. And I'm just going to pop that one in there. Now I'm going to hold that with my pen for a moment, but then we're going to actually put a little stone in after. And Anthony, if you're watching, sorry I can't see your comment. I have no idea why. It's obviously a Facebook thing today. It's hiding half the comments. So I don't say hi, just you ping me on the group, I should say. But yes, he is currently rehearsing for the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games. And then on Sunday he starts rehearsal for the closing as well. Which will be cool. Now, this is struggling to stay put a little bit. So, I might see if I can put something else in there just to help it kind of stay put. I was going to save this to go on its own, but I think it's going to need it just to try and get it to... Now this one's always fun, trying to decide which to do. Because sometimes it's easier to drop the gel medium from a great height into the centre of a flower. Other times, like today, it's easier to do it onto the gem. And sometimes belts and braces do it to both. This is not wanting to stick today. Come on, a little bit more. So all in all, probably good 4 hours work so far gone into this canvas. Between right from starting from getting it out of the packet. Because when you get it, the wooden frame is literally bare wood. So that was treated with white gesso and then used some of the Get Metal paint over the top to give it a sparkle. It means everything else is so sparkly. So I'm going to start mirroring some of the flower choices up here. So I'm going to go for a little frondy one. That can go just there. And I did get the paints back out just in case I decide that once everything is in place I need to just go around and adjust a few of my choices. So I'm just going to fluff these petals up around my pen while I'm holding that in place. And let's go for another of these. So this is a slightly smaller version. And again, just going to flatten that stem. And let's put that coming out from there. Yep, the flowers, these ones, are on the PGG website. The little die cut ones are from the, let's get it right now. Mel, you might be able to help out with this one because Mel very kindly cut me these flowers. Very, very kindly. So, just because I've got that one there again. You start to look and you start to think, oh, actually that if you can put the white there, that could come down here. So let's do that. And it's going to go, because we've got these little bits of elements down here, we've got some texture paste that's under here, which is always going to make sticking things a bit more fun. As I said, at least we've got the temperature today. Okay. Now remember how we snipped that little bit off? We can go back to that if we want to and actually use that to kind of fill in any gaps. So I'm just literally going to cut around our leaves so that it actually looks like they're meant to be like that all along rather than trimmed off something else. And I can pop those, I think, that way so that we're linking that colour through. Waste nothing. Ooh, let's go that way, like so. So remember, we want that cog to kind of just poke through. So next element I think is going to end up being a little resin piece, which we haven't put any in of yet. So I'm going to go for the little flower, and that can go in there, so that we're kind of holding our petals up and away from that cog. I'm just going to slide that in. Yep, we used to do little pop-up shops with our workshops. Thanks, Taz. So yeah, special editions. So when we were reorganising the craft room, I actually went through and tidied up all the dies and everything. So they're all in die storage now. The only problem with that is trying to remember names of dies is a nightmare. So they're all stored on magnetic sheets and good to go. Let's pop these through. Now, this might be a bit ambitious trying to get that through that hole, so I think I'm just going to give those a quick snip. Come on. Oh, 3 went through, so that'll do. That'll do. Just tap those there. Flip them over and we can give them a little bit of a trim. I have to de-sticky my scissors. So I'm going to put those down there actually. I have a change of plan. And put another flower in there just to push that up a little bit. So that our flower has a bit of shape. So I'm going to pop that one under there. That's going to support the petal that way. And then let's go for another little resin shape. And I think I'm going to go for this nice flat back one. So I think the flat backs are always good on canvases. You can always use some texture paste to build up if there's something that's not flat. So there we go. Pop that in there. Then we just want to bridge this last bit of the gap. So I'm going to grab some of our flowers in with the nails. So we've got this curve this way, so our next flower is going to kind of fill in this gap here. And we haven't had a stamp one for a while, so this one's a little bit flatter, so we can kind of do our little bit of a snip. Just going to follow the line of my stamp and just use what's left on my palette knife just to get that edge there. Round we go. And I'm going to pop this one just there. Okay. So I've got this one here with a bit of a stem, so we could actually use that as kind of like a full stop for a little bit of a curl. Taz, are you asking me what's the furthest I travel? Because the furthest I've been is Glasgow to teach. Might consider it again one day. It's a long way to go. Okay, so I'm going to pop that one just right on the edge of our canvas. So because our canvas is actually glued to our frame, you can actually start to add elements to your frame. Okay, Taz was asking anyone. So, what's the furthest anybody would travel for a workshop? Okay, so I'm going to get one more stamped image in, I think, maybe. I'm going to pop it just in there. I'm going to keep this one flat, just because it's going under quite a few different elements, and if we try and 3D it up and then tuck it under, it probably won't work. So that can go in there. Little double flower. So in terms of the colours, we've got the blush stream spray, we've got Artemis and Mars explosion powders, but not very much of the Mars because you can't get that one anymore. So where you see like these chocolatey tones, that's Mars. But the purple is Artemis and it's lovely. Just thinking just one last flower, and I think I'm going to pinch a little rosebud. Just does that, then finishes off that little stem. And I just want to have something I can just tuck in, kind of there-ish, I think. So, I'll put my glue on. Decide which is the back, where you could start. And I'm just going to slide that in there so it hides that cut stem. Like so. And I'm starting to think I'm quite happy with that, even though I've still got tons of bits over here that I could use. So I'm going to pop that circle in there, I think. So I'm not sure whether there's something like this on the PGG website. It's one of those ones where I kind of get lots of random bits. You might just find something like this in your selection. So around the outside it's got words like hope, trust, love. And I think I've kind of designed this with Lucy in mind, to be honest. Because we've got the music going on. It's her favourite colour, purple. Do I think this is going to stay at ours for very long? No. I'm going to tuck that silver one in there so that we bring the silver through. Now ideally you'd have something else silver as well so that we're working in our threes, but nah, that was it that kind of caught my eye in my stash. I'm quite liking how this is building up now. So I did pull out some bows as well, because you never know when you want to include a bit of ribbon. But I'm just going to see whether we can get the colours to kind of work, as to whether I include those. So I've pulled out ones that I think might work, but you never know till you actually get the items on there really. I wonder if I went kind of in there-ish. Trouble is I don't want to cover up too much of my background either. I think that might be going a bridge too far, so don't fiddle. So I've pulled out a few little gems and drops and things, and I think these might be good for centres of flowers. So I've already put a nice sparkly one, and they're really funky. But I've also pulled out some little iridescent ones that we can use too, and that will kind of finish things off. So that one I think is going to work well in that flower there. So this is definitely one where you want a bit of a blob on the end of your palette knife. There we go. And just drop that in. I'm just going to move that. You never knew a pen was so handy in Mixed Media, did you? I can't even get on the bus to Newquay, and that's only 7 miles away from me. Is that because they've cancelled the buses? I know a lot of bus services have unfortunately been curtailed due to the pandemic. Ones that were subsidised, and there just isn't the funding for, which is a shame, because buses are a necessity. And I'm going to put one up towards this top section here so that we're getting a little bit of evenness in our sparkle. So, come here. There we go. It's a good job that John made him dry scale. And then we've got quite a big area in this flower, so I'm thinking put something in there so it has a little extra interest. Whether that's another little flower, or I have this little sort of plasticky looking one. Yeah. Ian would say, yeah, I've definitely been set back, shall I say, by COVID in terms of going out. I had got a lot better at it. But yeah, I wouldn't go that far without him. And not just because I don't drive. I think one little one. I'm just going to go in there. Where's my pen gone? There we go. So this is the point where you can start fluffing, and you can go, okay, is there any little bits of painting that I need to do just to bring out the contrast a bit more, and particularly around the areas that you've just been sticking elements to. Just be aware that if you're doing that, the gel medium can tend to grab onto your colour. So I do put a little bit of the oh, the name of it's going to elude me now. The new cling stuff that was invented by Jennifer Maguire's hobby is going to come back to me in a minute. In the top of my pots, just so that it's nice and easy to release the lids, otherwise I'm forever going, hey, okay, so I'm thinking I might just need to do a little bit more shading in here. So I'm going to clear away a space on my palette, and we can do a little bit of painting with either our explosion powders, or you could use some of your paints. I'm going to set that to one side rather than chucking that away. I'll use it on something else. Okay. My palette knife out the way so I don't end up decorating something, and get me Artemis. And a nice paintbrush. And a little bit of water. So with your explosion powders, you can use your gel medium to mix them in if you want to. You could mix them into gesso, and each time you do, you're going to get a different colour. You can see, you're going to get a nice strong purple. And then we can just pull out this line here around her cheek, just so that she pops a little bit more. Just going to go really carefully around any outlining that you've done. And hopefully that's going to bring out that line a little better. I'm going to go around the little dot element and underneath the chin. Dip back into the water. So this is going to soften that colour, and we can just blend that back through. So instead of having a harsh line, we're going to soften it. Now if you've got colours underneath that's still water activated, so like the explosion powders, you're going to see that as you do this, it's going to start mixing those colours back in. And that's okay, don't worry. Just work with it. It's going to take that right into there. Back into our water. Again, blob out that brush so it's not too wet, and we can blend our next line. There we go. And a little bit more up here. And then I think that is going to be good to go. I'm happy with my cog for the most part. And this one up here just fades in the background a little bit, so I can just do a little bit of a tint just to try and pull that forward a little bit. So it's not always about going full out high contrast. Sometimes just a little bit of a tint over the top is enough. There we go. And I think that is it. Don't fiddle. So let me know what you think. Yeah, rusty colours are definitely my thing at the moment. So, quickly mop up. And ta-da! So I hope you've enjoyed that. And do let me know what you think. So I will be back next week, but I can't guarantee which day of the week it's going to be, just because of Ian's schedule. So what I will do is Mum will pop up a post on Monday with the week's live, so it's always worth looking out for that post, and I will let her know before then which day of the week it will be, and hopefully then we can have it in here. So take care for now, have fun, have a fab weekend, and I will see you next week.